What's going on, guys? Drewzy here, back again with another video, and I know that some of you guys are not in the 40s, are not in the legendary arena of PvP. Some of you are in the 20s in the bronze shield, or in the silver, or just got into silver shield. So I'm going to show you guys two quick, easy decks with no legendary cards, very few epics, mostly commons, and a couple epics and a couple rares, to kind of give you some suggestions of decks to build in the 20 of PvP, in like the rank 20s to 30s, and even the low tier of 30. I will then do another video, maybe this week or possibly next week, of some deck ideas for the 30s. People of you that are in the Silver Shield and the low levels of Silver Shield, in the 30, 35 to 40 range, to try to help you guys be more successful in PvP, make your PvP experience better, and just give you some suggestions and tips as far as how to be. There's not going to be any gameplay in this video, so there's not going to be me showing you the deck and then me playing the deck. If you guys want that, let me know down in the comment section. I may do some videos with some gameplay of these decks to see if they'll even work in the 40s. I don't know if they will or not, but I know that some of you guys have been saying, Drew, I'm around 24, 25, or even 28, and I'm struggling to find decks that work for me in PvP. So these two decks will probably be some of the best ones for you. They are not the best. I did not, go to something to say, hey, these are the best decks. These are just decks that, based on my experience that I've had throughout the course of the game, that I think will work successfully for you. But let's just go ahead and talk about the first of the two decks here real quick. So real quick, before I showcase and discuss the deck in more detail, probably the best three themes for somebody that's in the rank 20s will probably be Adventure, Mystical, and Sci-Fi. Fantasy is available to you after level 15 in PvP and or through the campaign missions. However, your fantasy cards will most likely not be high enough rank for or leveled up enough for you to be competitive with them in the 20s of PvP. If you're lucky enough to get them in a high enough tier, then fantasy decks will work very well for you. Fantasy is much better in the higher tiers of PvP right now than in the lower tiers, because most people don't have them at high enough levels. Don't just throw in level 1 fantasy cards that you have no upgrade items into, because you're just going to get decimated and they're just wastes of space in your decks. In my opinion, for the rank 20s, your best themes to go with are Adventure, Mystical, and Sci-Fi. So we're going to do a quick Adventure Mystical deck and then a Sci-Fi Mystical deck to round it out as the top two decks. Two great decks for PvP at these lower ranks. Now, these are not, there's no tier system as far as saying this deck needs to be used. You need to use this deck 100% like I'm telling you. These are just my suggestions. I will give you some alternative cards to use if you don't have some of these cards at your disposal. So here's the deck real quick here. As you see, we're going to go through neutral cards are going to be the first cards that I'm going to post. And then we're going to go through the other, basically the other themes as we go along here. So rats need to be in your deck, because rats are one of the best counter cards in the entire game. Now, I know that some of you may overlook rats early on in your gameplay experience. If you're in the lower tiers, you need to level your rats up, because you're going to regret it later, because neutral upgrade items are the hardest upgrade items to come by, especially serums, which are the silver ones. Those are almost impossible to get, just because you can only get them primarily out of packs. Really is the best way to get them, because there is no neutral campaign like there is for all the other themes. So you're at a huge disadvantage at getting upgrade items for neutral cards other than just getting them out of packs. So please upgrade rats. I'm telling you, you're not going to regret it, especially much later on in your PvP experience as you continue to work your way up. Rats are extremely important. Level them up, guys. And we're going to stop with telling you what to do with rats. So rats are my first suggestion from the neutral theme. Secondly, Terrence Mephisto or Nathan, depending on which of these two you have higher leveled. It's great to have that AoE damage. Terrence is a little bit better because of his attack speed is faster, and his in that he's flying. A lot of people are not going to have the ability to counter flying units that much in the lower tiers, so having a flying card just puts you at that much more of an advantage, and he's a stronger, higher tier card later on if you're leveling him up in the lower ranks in the 20s and 30s. Nathan is very good, though, especially the lower in the lower tiers around the 20s, because of his extra range that he has, and again does AoE damage, and he does more damage than Terrence Mephisto does as well. So either of those two, just that's preference to you, but I would suggest Terrence Mephisto over Nathan in my opinion. Calamity Heidi, because Calamity Heidi is one of the best mini tank, is called the mini tank. She's one of the best tank cards for a fighter card in the game. Decent damage, great health, no charged ability, but very useful card, high tier card, very useful to level her up and have her for later on. Now for the next, Assassin Smuggler Ike is my personal opinion because he's better, I think, in the lower tiers of PvP. You can use either Ike or Bandita Sally. This is, again, based on preference of who you have leveled up higher or who you prefer, because both are kind of similar as far as damage output in these in this level of PvP. Smuggler Ike has a charge ability, however, where he can do additional damage when he's charged, so that gives him a little bit of plus, in my opinion, for PvP over Bandita Sally. So again, preference as far as which of those two assassins you want. I love Gunslinger Kyle in the lower tiers of PvP, and I like him he's in my main deck in the higher tiers of PvP. I like Gunslinger Kyle a lot. I think he's an undervalued card in my opinion. He's considered a mid-tier card right now in the PvP meta. I think he should be higher. That's just my opinion. But I like Gunslinger Kyle. He gives a nice damage boost to all of your assassin units. There are plenty of cards here that could use a nice little boost to damage and be effective. Rats, for instance. Any of your assassins with Smuggler Ike, or Choirboy Butters, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and things like that, to have that a little bit of extra damage boost. You can just push with just rats, and another assassin with Gunslinger Kyle, and you could do a crap load of damage to the enemy new kid if they're not paying attention. It's a very situational buff that can be used to your advantage at times. Hokan Clyde is a favorite of mine. He's a high tier card. He's very strong in the later levels of PvP. Not widely as used in the lower tiers as would be maybe Storyteller Jimmy, who would probably be the best replacement for Hokan Clyde, or Dog Poo. If you have Dog Poo, Hokan Clyde, or Storyteller Jimmy, or you have all three of these, it's your preference as far as what you want to do. They're all the same energy cost at 3 energy, which is one of the main reasons why I think they're interchangeable. Dog Poo does a ton of damage, has great health. Love Hokan Clyde's Warcry ability, which is random but can do devastating damage if you hit the right enemy, and hopefully not just the new kid. And Storyteller Jimmy does a good job of debuffing damage. So again, that's all preference between those three of which one you prefer. I would encourage you to use Hokan Clyde, however. Aerostorm. Now, a lot of you would think, no, Drew, you should be using Fireball or Lightning or both. And that's not wrong. But in the lower tiers of PvP, in my opinion, Aerostorm is devastating because most people don't have very high leveled cards in the 20s. And Aerostorm, if you have it, if you don't have Aerostorm, then Fireball is your best option. But Aerostorm will take out a ton of units in the lower tiers of PvP, much better than Fireball does, and it's at a cheaper cost. And it takes up the whole freaking screen. So you don't have to worry about, where am I casting Aerostorm? Just cast Aerostorm and watch everything die, pretty much, unless you get unlucky and play against people with way too high level of cards. But I love Aerostorm for the 20s. Highly suggest that. Zen Cartman is the best PvP tank in the game, guys. I know a lot of you are going to be thinking, but Drew, he doesn't do any damage. So what? He distracts everybody, and he soaks up a ton of damage if you level him up. Level up Zen Cartman, guys. You will not regret it. He was one of the first rare cards I got to level 4, and he's so good. I mean, he soaks up a crap load, a ton of damage. I mean, right now I have him 31 of 40, 1,225 health. I know that a lot of you in the 20s are not going to have him this high, but you should. You should level him up. You should request him from your clanmates and things like that. You should get Zen Cartman up, guys. He's a low energy cost tank. He soaks up a crap load of damage. He attracts enemies to him. He's great. He's great. Trust me, you want Zen Cartman. Next, Angel Wendy. A ranged unit. You want at least 2 ranged units. It would be my suggestion for you guys in PvP. I have 3 in this deck. But Angel Wendy, great healing, good range, does decent damage, things like that, but just her ability to heal the first 3 enemies within her aura is huge. She can keep a lot of people alive. If you keep her in the back, keep her protected, she's very strong. Friar Jimmy, kind of same principle as Angel Wendy, healing. He's also a pretty darn good fighter on top of that, not just the fact that he has a healing aura. As you know, to help him and keep his teammate, your other ally teammates alive, essentially. So Friar Jimmy, very good, solid fighter card in the lower tiers, and even in the higher tiers. He's run rampant in PvP for a good reason. He's a strong card. Regeneration is much better in the 20s and 30s than it is in the 40s and above, because it's harder to really get that to level up regeneration and get it to a good enough tier in the higher, more elite tiers of PvP. But regen runs rampant. It's been nerfed, yes, but it's still good. It still works. It's still considered a high tier card, and in the 20s, most people are not going to be running Purify. So they're not going to really be able to stop you. So you're just going to be able to run it. Now, don't waste regeneration. Don't use regeneration on one card. At least have 2 to 3 or more cards on the battlefield to use regeneration to really take advantage of it. Also, make sure that they're attacking something when you use it. Not that that gives it any extra damage buff. It does slightly increase their movement speed, however. I do not know if it increases their attack speed. I'm pretty sure it does not. But the fact that you're going to get a little bit of extra movement and the heal is just so useful to me. Regen is hugely, almost necessary, in my opinion, in the 20s of PvP. And Choirboy Butters would be my pick for another assassin. He's very strong, does a lot of damage at the lower tiers of PvP, slower attack speed. So in this one, you could put Bandita Sally if you want Ike and Sally both, and you have them leveled up a little bit more. Then Choirboy Butters, or you just don't have Choirboy Butters, that would be the best replacement for Choirboy Butters, or Hermes Kenny. Hermes Kenny is also another solid mystical damaging output assassin at the lower tiers of PvP. So those two for sure are very strong and very good for you. The second deck we're going to talk about for the level 20s of PvP right now is a SciFi Mystical deck, and here is the SciFi Mystical deck here on the screen for you guys. Notice two things about both these decks that we're talking about in this episode is that the energy cost is below 3. Having a lower energy cost puts you at a much higher advantage in your PvP matches, in my opinion, over having a higher cost. I've seen a lot of people in the 20s rolling 3.4s, 3.5s, 3.2s. If you have a 3 or below, you're going to be in a much better position, in my opinion. So please, try to look at that average energy cost. That is important to be more successful for your PvP gameplay, because you'll be able to get more units out faster. It's not just about spamming the units, it's about using the units in the right situation, which is something that I've been still working on myself. There are times where I feel like I just spam units, and that is a weakness of myself in my PvP play. I've been trying to improve with it and whatnot, and it was a big struggle for me, especially early on, because I tried to just have really cheap decks, and I just try to spam units and just try to take full advantage of the ability to just have a bunch of units on the field. But just be careful with that, guys. Don't go over the top crazy with it. Just be smart about it. So the first card we're going to talk about in this deck, Terrace Mephisto. Again, prefer him over Nathan, but again, Nathan would be the best alternative if you don't have Terrace Mephisto, for the same reasons that we talked about in deck number 1 of this breakdown. For number 2, again, Rats. Again, great counter card. Get Rats ranked up. Use them a lot. In this deck, Dog Poo. Again, Dog Poo is replaceable. You could use Space Warrior Token or Nelly would be my suggestions for replacements for Dog Poo. But Dog Poo in the lower tiers is devastating. He does so much damage, and it feels like it takes forever to kill him. Yes, he has slow attack speed, and he's probably not as good in the higher tiers of PvP as in the lower tiers, in my opinion. But he's an amazing card for you guys to have as a fighter card in these lower tiers. For now, moving into the sci-fi part of this deck, Astronaut Butters, my favorite assassin in the game, has one of the best death wishes, in my opinion, in the game, where he boosts the nearest ally as far as attack speed and movement speed for a brief period of time. He doesn't have the greatest attack speed, he doesn't have the greatest damage, but I still love Astronaut Butters. He's a solid assassin card and a high tier card right now in the game. Enforcer Jimmy is a great fighter card, a high tier fighter card as well, low cost, pretty good health, pretty good attack. He has a nice little charge ability where he'll basically does power bind, and he stops them from being able to use charged abilities, and you want it in his aura. Very, very useful things, but the primary thing is his low cost, and he's pretty solid even for a low cost fighter card. Program Stan is next for the sci-fi. The sci-fi is because of his charge ability, primarily. His charge ability is hugely popular for a sci-fi deck, especially in the 20s and 30s. And it's just great. It freezes the entire screen. He does do pretty decent damage, decent attack speed, decent health for a fighter card. But to be all honest, if you don't have Program Stan, I don't really have a lot of alternatives for him. So I mean, you can use for Enforcer Jimmy, you can use Friar Jimmy, or you can use Friar Jimmy and replace a Program Stan. That would probably be the best alternatives here. But I mean, you really only want one Jimmy card. Poseidon Stan could possibly be used here instead of Program Stan. That would be okay. from the mystical theme, but Program Stand provides a ton of value in the lower levels to me that he's almost a necessity. So if you don't have Program Stand, I would not use this deck and maybe use the other deck that I suggested. That's just my opinion. For the next card, Cyborg Kenny. And I like Cyborg Kenny a little bit more than Hermes Kenny in the lower tiers of PvP because of his Death Wish. His Death Wish basically gives mind control for 10 seconds. That's insane. And again, most people in the 20s don't run Purify. They think Purify is completely pointless spell card. As you can see, I even have Purify in this deck because you need to be using it. But we'll talk about that here in a second. Cyborg Kenny, because most people don't roll Mystical, or I'm sorry, don't roll Purify, his Death Wish will just decimate people, because you can, if you use it at the right time, not only does he do decent damage and have decent health for an assassin card, but then you have complete control over somebody for a brief period of time, and he can now use that as a counterattack against them in a fight. So Cyborg Kenny, highly suggest, if you don't have him, Hermes Kenny can work. Hermes Kenny has better damage and better attack speed than Cyborg Kenny, but his Death Wish isn't as good. So again, Cyborg Kenny to me and Program Stand are the two musts for this deck to really be truly shine and be as effective for you as it can be. So those two would highly suggest just keeping. Alien Clyde. Now Alien Clyde is not a must, but I don't really know a replacement for him, to be honest with you. I like his poison ability. If you cast Alien Clyde after another person casts a person, he will then immediately poison them. So if you use him situationally, he can poison a kid near the enemy new kid and poison both the enemy unit and the new kid at the same time, and can take out maybe a ranged unit. So if someone puts a Nathan in the back first right off the bat, drop that Alien Clyde and bam! Now that Nathan's poisoned. And again, they're probably not running Purify, so if you have him ranked up high enough, you could probably kill him. And then now you have a 1 energy advantage, because he's only a 3 energy cost to maybe someone like Nathan. Just as an example, that's a 4. So then now you have energy. Now you have a positive trade in your favor. So Alien Clyde, highly useful, very strong card, high tier card, the best Clyde in the game in my opinion. So would highly suggest him in this deck. Zen Cartman again, solid tank, great tank. You can use Osimo if you really want to. It's going to up your energy cost to probably around 3 through 3.1 if you use Osimo. I love Osimo a little bit in the lower tiers, especially with he has great health at the lower tiers at level 1. And his freeze charge ability is very nice. But again, Zen Cartman is the strongest tank card in the game. I would highly suggest using Zen Cartman over Osimo, but again, Zen Cartman's replaceable with Osimo. Angel Wendy, again, great range card, healing, sustainability. You could use Ice Sniper Wendy if you really want to. I like Ice Sniper Wendy, and I wish Ice Sniper Wendy was better. She's not that great. Can freeze 3 enemies, which is kind of nice to have that control aspect, but the ability to heal and keep you alive, in my opinion, is way better and way more useful than freezing some enemies for a brief period of time. So again, Angel Wendy would be my preferred choice. Next card, Regeneration again, because Regeneration's so strong in the lower tiers of PvP. And then Purify. Now this is where you can have a lot of flexibility. You could get rid of Purify altogether, and you could go with another fighter card if you want to, or you can go with another spell, maybe something like Poison to go along with this Sci-Fi deck and wipe out cards. Unholy Combustion if you're struggling with someone that has Man Bear Pig or that has a high tank and you want to take that tank out immediately. But with Unholy Combustion, I will say it is a 5 energy cost, so be careful. Use it only in a positive trade advantage. Don't use it on a dog poo who's level 3, even though it might be tempting. You're like, oh man, this dog poo's going to kill me. I got to take him out. That's 2 energy disadvantage to you. Don't use it against Zen Cartman either. He's a 3 energy cost. Some people would say that's still a positive trade, Drew. I'm going to disagree with you. Zen Cartman's not doing damage. Yes, he's great at distracting, like I said in both these deck breakdowns. But, use it in a positive trade if you're going to go with Unholy Combustion. I still think Purify, because a lot of people aren't rolling it, and you need to be able to practice with it, because if you're going to roll Mystical in the higher tiers, you're going to need Purify probably in your deck. And Purify... And because Purify's range has been nerfed now, previous months ago within the game, you're going to need to be better and learn how to use it effectively. So I would highly suggest Purify. But again, you have some flexibility with Purify as far as interchangeable cards. And you do it with a lot of these cards in this deck specifically. But that's 2 decks for you guys. We have the Sci-Fi Mystical deck and we have the Adventure Mystical deck for you guys for these 2 level 20 deck suggestions. Let me know down below what decks you guys have used in the 20s or in the 30s that have been more successful for you. So we're going to do, this video primarily will focus on level 20 to 30 deck ideas. We'll talk into more 30 and above in another video, hopefully, that I can do at some point this week for you guys, because I just want to make your PvP experience a little bit better for you. And hopefully, I hope that this video helps you in the lower tiers of PvP. I know this may not be a very highly viewed video, but it's more just educational and assisting you guys in being more successful in your gameplay. And if you guys want, I can do gameplay videos with both these decks and see if I can get them even to work in the 40s if you guys want. I don't know how effective they're going to be. I feel like some of them could still work. I think I'd probably take out Aerostorm for Fireball and maybe some other changes for this deck specifically over the other ones, but I still think both these decks could work out for you in both the higher level of PvP and especially in the lower tiers. But let me know down below, guys, what you think of this video. I hope this helps you guys out for the ones in the lower tiers of PvP in the Bronze Shield. But until next time, guys, my name is Drewzy,